am, being hard on myself and thinking negatively has, you think negatively and things go down. You go down mentally. So I am trying to, be positive because things have gone haywire this year, and it's been an extremely hard year for me. I'm very lucky that I have resources, and I'm very lucky that I have doctors who trust me. But, I'm going for positivity. I'm going to go glam up on Wednesday because I want to treat myself with kindness and forgiveness. And I think that that's very important for anybody's mental health, to forgive yourself for the past and to have positive energy going forward. That, you have to choose yourself first to be there for anyone else and to treat yourself with kindness and consideration that you deserve, because everybody deserves to treat themselves with respect. And at points, I have not treated myself with the kindness and respect that I deserved. I think that this is an incredibly important message for anybody. Positive energy. I went down. I was in bad shape when the hardest thing I've ever had to do, one of the hardest things I've ever had to realize is that I had to sue a psychiatrist, or I felt that I needed to sue a psychiatrist. And I firmly believe that I did not receive fully informed consent. This was something that petrified me, that, people have said it's my fault. It's not. When you truly have a case and they're truly, you do not have any indication of informed consent, that is not your fault. So this was extraordinarily tough for me. And, I have had process servers, and there's a motion for substituted service. So I am trying to be kind to myself and look on positive things and take care of myself. And yeah, there's a few bugs out here, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. Sunshine, my doctors have now said, sunshine, massage, sleep hygiene, talk, and you get through it. And yeah, my doctor was glad that I filed suit because he thought this was definitely a suit. And I'm very lucky that I have doctors who trust me. But, the power of positive energy, those tarot cards and crystals that I was sold on as positive energy, those were not helpful. But being positive and, feeling like you look good. Okay, so I just asked ChatGPT how old I looked, and I wasn't very happy with the results. But, I asked ChatGPT things too much, and that's probably a bad idea. But, feeling like you look good for yourself is very important. I'm 48. I will be 49 on July 22nd when I plan to launch my charity. My charity is extraordinarily important to me. It'll be a soft launch on my birthday on July 22nd. I am forming a board. I have a website that is, will go live, and there'll be a GoFundMe on my birthday. I have the initial funds for a charity as a familial gift for my birthday, because this is what I want. I want other people to know the risks of physical dependency. Hello, how are you guys doing? Of physical dependency before it happens, because I know so many people knew nothing at all. If psych meds work for you, I have no issues with that, whatever. I don't preach to anybody what to do. I urge them to ask the questions that I never felt I could ask. And these are things that, had I asked questions, had I felt I could ask questions, things would be very different this year. You're doing well and just woke up? Wow, it's 1:03 in the afternoon at Eastern Daylight Time. You're just waking up? I've been in a long-term insomniac, so I always wake up super early in the morning. I say hooray to me when I get, if I get 6 hours sleep, that's a hooray for me day. Yahoo for me. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate your positive points. Celebrate the things that you like to do. For me, I love traveling. So, I just came back from the Dominican Republic. I love to travel, and this was my 33rd country. I didn't travel much when I was physically disabled. I'm super excited to be going to Ecuador in a few weeks, and I think I'm going to go to Banff. But the power of positive energy is so important right now for me, to stay positive and to stay in the moment and not to think catastrophically about horrible things that may happen in the future. I am trying to take care of myself to be there for anybody else. And I think that is a very good lesson for anybody, that you should treat yourself with kindness and consideration, and choose yourself first. This is something that I've always had difficulty with, was, choosing myself first and being positive. It's maintaining, social interaction and being positive and placing boundaries. I have not always had good boundaries, and I am working on my boundaries so that I can be there for myself, and I can reach out for help when I need it, but not when I do not absolutely need it. I'm in a benzodiazepine group, and it's fabulous because there's people who reassure me that I haven't lost it when little things happen. Oops. Like the other night, I fell asleep and I screamed. I woke up screaming, and I involuntarily hit myself. I resolved within an hour, but these are things that happen in withdrawal. And other people said, yeah, that happened to me as well. These are not things that merited medical attention because they resolved. But when you're going through it, you're like, what is happening to me? Am I losing it? It's like, no. These are things that happen in withdrawal. These are things that benzos can do to you. You never know what a benzo can do to you. People have all sorts of strange reactions to benzos. And I am lucky that I don't think the worst things will happen to me. But doctors were way overly optimistic with me this year. They made me think that I was going to be doing ballet till 8:45 at night. And, that's just not something that I can do. I can't do ballet until 8:45 at night. So, I'm trying to find other things to do during the day and other physical activities to get myself back in shape. So, I'm trying to swim and to stay outside and to enjoy the good weather and to not be catastrophic, to stay in the moment, to eat. Sometimes I've forgotten to eat. And eating and hydration. Yesterday, I went to the Chief Justice's party. I think I must have had 6 bottles of water. People were saying to me, you just drank that much water. Of course I had to go to the bathroom. But, I was stumbling up the stairs. I don't want to have to have people help me. I don't want to be in a position where I need medical help. So, I don't like it when I am stumbling upstairs. I'm selling my house right now because I'm a fall risk. I recognize that I'm a fall risk. And, once you're a fall risk, you say, okay, it's time to change because I might fall down the stairs. And, that would be really bad if I fell down the stairs. But, these are the things I have been taken for, I am very lucky that I still have resources right now because I am out, hundreds of K this year. And I am, forgiving myself for the things that have gone down this year that really were not my fault because I trusted. I am overly trusting. My best friend is now more involved to make certain that I make decisions in my wise mind because I have not made decisions in my wise mind every time this year. And that has been, that has not been the best for me because it means that I wasted money that I did not need to waste because I was frightened. I was frightened of being a commitment. I was frightened of psychiatric hospitals because psychiatric hospitals, I have a power of attorney saying don't commit me to a psychiatric hospital for any reason unless I'm a danger to others. I have never been a danger to others, and I don't think I'd ever be a danger to myself, sufficient to merit being a commitment. But I have always been frightened of psychiatric hospitals, and I think many people are frightened of psychiatric hospitals. My preference would be that my mother or my best friend be called. There are now better options. There are there are places that are opening up now that are non-medication based that you can go for a little bit. Because if you feel bad about yourself, if you have a really bad day, even if you have urges to hurt yourself, that doesn't merit being committed to a psych hospital for a month. If it works for you, I have no issues with that. These are not things that I don't preach something specific. However, often, a mental health issue can resolve much more quickly with a little bit of time off and a little bit of care than if you go to a psychiatric hospital. And I think that, I've always been afraid to call 988. This is something I was afraid I would be a commitment. really, for me at least, I mean, if you say something catastrophic, yes, the 988 operator is going to have to call 911 on you. But if you can assure the 988 operator that you're safe and that you're panicking or that something minor has happened, their standard is fairly high for when they would call on you. So I've called 988 this year. I always thought that my bar or my custody would be in jeopardy if you called 988. And really, that's not true. These are things you can reach out for help. And I have always been afraid. I've been scared to death. Not scared to death, but a psychiatric hospital is something I was in one once at 16 for a month, and one at 20 for a week. At 16, it was, I attempted at 16. At 20, it was for side effects of antipsychotics. There was really no reason. I didn't meet any standards. I had 4-day passes. It was totally pointless, and it technically gave me a lifetime diagnosis of bipolar 1, which is, so many people are misdiagnosed. So many people are misdiagnosed. I'm very proud of my Mad in America article. This is, I had a traumatic childhood, and psychiatric medications definitely were not the answer for me. Positive energy, taking time off, taking care of yourself would have been a lot better for me than the way I was treated by mainstream psychiatry when I was 20. I freely admit, I looked up what bipolar 1 was, and I acted the part. But I firmly believe I'm autistic. And like so many people, I was misdiagnosed. I am going to have a neuropsych. But I have not yet. I've had it changed in some records. There are many people who are misdiagnosed. And I think that is incredibly unfortunate, because misdiagnoses are rampant. And the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual loves to put us in categories. You go in, and whenever you go to see a therapist, whenever you see a psychiatrist, you have to be put in a category. Like, what category am I going to put you in? I need to label you. I need to put a label on you. And yeah, this is insurance. It's kind of necessary for insurance, but it's something that, I don't like to be labeled. I don't like to be told I am something. If I'm going to have a label, it would be that I'm on the spectrum, but I would prefer not to have a label at all. These are things that, but I'm trying to focus on the things that I'm proud of, the positive things. I have the resources to travel. I have a charity. This is incredibly important to me, to have a charity in the works. And I'm grateful that I've done a ton of podcasts. Some of them are up on my website, ellenlubensky.com. Some of them are not yet up on my website. I think I've done at least 27 in 4 months. I'm, top 3% in the world on Podmatch. And, now people are reaching out to me because I want to talk. I live to do lives. I love talking publicly. This is something I don't get anxious at all doing lives or doing podcasts. It is something that I enjoy doing tremendously. So, if I have no issues with people who want to be private. These are things that are entirely up to you. For me, being public was something I always wanted to be. I did not want to be hiding in corners. I wanted to be talking. I wanted to be telling people, not to fall into the traps that I have fallen into. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say to a provider, I don't think you're the right fit. If a provider is insulted by that, find another provider. There should be another provider. If a provider doesn't give you the opportunity to ask questions, I would hope that there would be another provider. I am very lucky that I have a provider who trusts me 100%, that I am not an addict. I have never misused a substance. I've never been drunk. I've never smoked a cigarette. But yeah, I'm in benzo withdrawal. And, benzo withdrawal is not fun at all. We just had Benzodiazepine Awareness Day. And there were so many people who spoke their truth. And it was awesome to see all the people who are struggling in benzo withdrawal speaking up. But it was also horrible because there were so many horror stories. There were deaths. People were memorializing people who had died due to benzodiazepine withdrawal, because it can be deadly, especially when people do not have doctors who trust them. And, people sometimes try to get off psychiatric medications without the support of medical professionals. And that can be dangerous. So this is something I am very careful with my benzos at this point. No, I've always been careful with my benzos. I wish I wasn't physically dependent, but once you're physically dependent on them, you take your benzos because you're physically dependent. You don't stop taking your benzos because, at some point out there, I'm at risk of seizures. It's not, if I don't take them for a day or for a few days, I think I'm fine. They are, at this point, I know them exceptionally well. And I know that I've gone to the ER and they said if I tip the bottle, they got my back. They're not going to label me as an addict, and they're going to give me a temporary supply. And I'm lucky that I have that. And many people they don't feel that they could go to the ER if they accidentally tip their bottle, and they would, be labeled as an addict, told that, they had done something horrific, and not given Valium or put in a psych hospital. So many people, some people go on the streets and buy benzos. And I'm lucky that I've never gone on the streets to buy benzos. And I am lucky in a ton of respects. But, I can't sit here and saying I'm lucky every second of the day. But the worst thing I've done is overshare. I have reached out to people too many times. And I violated their boundaries at times because I, wanted social connections, and I have difficulties with social cues. So sometimes I don't get it. And I've reached out too many times, and I know that people are involved in their own thing and they are choosing themselves first. So I'm not, it's not that I'm upset with anybody who, is not immediately responding, because I've reached out too many times. I freely admit that I've overshared. And I think that that's something that many people have done in withdrawal, is that they've overshared. Many people on live, say that they've lost a lot of friends because people don't know what they're going through. And I think that that is something that happens incredibly frequently in withdrawal, that other people have no idea what I'm going through, and they don't know what to say to me, especially when I post public and I publicize. So, people in my community don't know what the hey to say to me when I am, constantly talking about things that can make people uncomfortable. Because I touch on subjects that, people don't always talk about. But it is my mission and purpose as an attorney to talk about those things so that others do not struggle the way that I've struggled. And I hope that other people feel free to reach out for help and to ask questions before they become physically dependent. Because, I wish I had a sit down with Dr. Baldessano before I was prescribed benzodiazepines. I wish I had felt like I wish she had given me a transparent discussion and not told me high dose benzos, no issues, no problems, just take more and you'll sleep more. I've reported her. I encourage people to report. I've gone to suit because doctors do mess up, psychiatrists do mess up, but I am then treating myself with kindness and forgiveness that having to go to suit is not my fault. It is very difficult for anybody, any attorney to litigate a malpractice case. So, I am considered by my doctor to be 100% disabled because I can't follow screens. So I have trouble watching a TV show or reading more than a few paragraphs. So I just focus on the things that I can do. I can go swimming, I can take a walk, I can talk. And, I can follow short things, and I can following longer content, I can do it if I really try, but it is very difficult for me to do. So I'm hoping that, my cognitive abilities return. And I've been told they're going to return. This is not a serious chronic health condition, that I am going to recover at some point. And, I'm going for positive energy and positivity that things will end, because it's been a wacky year. And I was given way too optimistic. And I went down. I was at survival. And I said, oh my God, I have to sue. I feel I have to sue. And that was a horrible time for me, to realize that I felt that I needed to file a medical malpractice case. And I almost gave up, but you can't give up. You cannot, I was giving up on myself. And I said, no, I'm not going to give up myself. This was not my fault. I'm going to get through this because I need to get through this for me. So I went to the Dominican Republic, and I took time for me to take care of myself, to be there for anybody else. Choosing yourself first is not something that is, it is something that everybody should do. It is not something that you should feel bad about doing. It is perfectly fine to do things for yourself and treat yourself well. Whatever it is that you enjoy doing, you should find out what you enjoy doing and doing that for you. For me, that's travel. I'm hoping to find, I thought that I'd be doing ballet at night and doing things at nighttime. So I'm trying to find classes and things to do during the day to keep me busy more. So yeah, no, I'm going to go and look at mattresses later, because my biggest issue in withdrawal is sleep. So I'm going to go and try out vibrating mattresses that vibrate slightly, because when I was in the airport the other night, the floor was vibrating. So I was trying to make something good out of this. My flight was 3 hours late. I was like, come on, you got to be kidding me. But, I almost fell asleep on the floor because it was vibrating. And I've almost fallen asleep on the floor of a meditation class where they had a train underneath you, and the floor was vibrating. And like, anything that will put me to sleep. Bless me, sorry. Because, psych medications, my tolerance grew quickly and I became more of an insomniac. So, that didn't work well. That definitely didn't work well for me. If it works for you. But, benzodiazepines, I don't think are indicated for insomnia. There are other psych meds that are indicated for insomnia, but it is not something, I think the use of benzos has decreased, and there's more awareness and more informed consent, somewhat more. But doctors still, many people go into the doctor and you say, I'm depressed or anxious. And they say, here's a pill. This is an easy way to solve your problem. And in reality, a pill may solve your problem quickly. For some people, it may work, but there's tons of side effects. There are tons of things that may go wrong that you have no idea that might go wrong. So, if you know the risks, that's fine. I have no issues with that. I know friends for whom even benzos work. And I definitely have friends for whom other psychiatric medications work. I am highly sensitive, and I firmly believe I was up to 5 milligrams of Ativan, which is a very large dose. So I'm tapering. I'm down to 3.32 milligrams of liquid Valium, 11.5 milligrams of baclofen, 150 milligrams of lithium. Yeah, I'm perimenopausal. I take progesterone. I take rhodiola. I take supplements. I follow doctor's directions, and I take this stuff because I'm physically dependent on it, and physical dependency is not fun. I'm not an addict. There are many people who are accused of being addicts when they're physically dependent. I am not one of them. There are people who are addicted to benzos. That's a very small portion of the population who are addicted to benzos. And unfortunately, many people are labeled as addicts, and, doctors think they're addicts. But, because I have doctors who trust me and I'm not really afraid to tell people, my exact needs. I went to the ER in the Dominican Republic when I was dehydrated, and I'm like, they asked me why I was taking Valium. I'm like, I'm taking it because it was for medical malpractice. I was very transparent. I'm physically dependent. I didn't need to take it in the first place. I did wish I wasn't taking it, but I take it because you got to take benzos once you're physically dependent on benzos, and it is not fun. It is not fun. And I really wish I wasn't physically dependent on benzos. But once you are, there's no, you got to get through it. You got to get through withdrawal because withdrawal is a nightmare. It's something you never want to go through. And I never knew how bad it would be. And yeah, for me, it's not as bad as for many people, but I can't sit here saying that every moment of the day, because you see so many people struggling across platforms in withdrawal. Nobody in my community will even admit that they're in psych med withdrawal, and I post public and I asked around. I've never even met anybody in benzo withdrawal. So these are things, I feel very much alone, that nobody knows what I've gone through. I mean, in my benzo group they do, but I say, will you join my TikTok live? And they're like, okay, because nobody else, people aren't public, and I am profoundly public. When you post as much as I do, I think on Facebook I have 1.4 reels in the last 11 months. I overkill on the social media part, but it's something I enjoy doing. So, you find your little hobby. My obsession with social media. I'm sorry. Maybe this is a neurodivergent trait that I'm obsessed with social media. But if you're going to have an obsession, this one is not. This is better than many obsessions. So I'm going to go with being obsessed with social media, because I post public for a purpose. I post public because I want to tell people, I want to spread awareness that that you can ask questions, and I never ask questions, and you can always ask questions, and I never thought I could ask questions. You need to know that you have choices. I think there's something like 12.5% of the population that has at some point been prescribed benzodiazepines. Some of them become physically dependent, some of them don't. I became physically dependent really quickly, and that was incredibly unfortunate for me. And many people become physically dependent so quickly. So these are the things that I want to tell people about before physical dependency sets in, so that they know and that they have choices and that they can make choices. You can bring a friend or a family member into an appointment with you to make certain that you make decisions in your wise mind. I think that this is incredibly important, that people feel like they could bring somebody in with them, or ask a hospital advocate, or ask somebody if they don't feel certain that they can make a decision in their wise mind. And I think that this is, so often people are pressured to make decisions very quickly in healthcare. And that's unfortunate. So yeah, I'm going for positive energy today. I'm going to talk to somebody who's a perspective for my board. I'm going to go mattress shopping, and then I'm going to chill. I'm going to chill and take care of myself, because I know that in the evenings are much more difficult for me. And yeah, I got to clean out my house because we're moving. I have so many papers, and it is, the thought of going through all my papers and getting out of the house is just absolutely horrific for me. And we're showing it now, and I have to keep it up and ready. And it is very hard for me to do that. But I need to sell, so it's always a stressful event. Anyways, thanks so much for coming to my live. I think I'm going to be doing weekly lives on YouTube now. I do one live on LinkedIn generally at 8:30 a.m. on Thursdays. I generally do 2 TikTok lives and 1 Facebook live a week. And feel free to visit my website, ellenlubensky.com. July 22nd, I have a soft launch of my charity. I'm super excited for that. Find the things you enjoy. And, you got to get through this because you don't have many options once you're in withdrawal. Thanks so much for being my live. I greatly appreciate it.